Hi everyone, thank you for coming to my vulnerably badass YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about maximizing your environment. Um, I arrived in Washington DC last Wednesday and it's been a week and 2 days, but I started working from this Monday. As an intercultural coach trainer, I offer intercultural programs online, and I have been, I think for the past 4 days, I offered one European person program about Korea, and then another second one was coaching for a French CFO about Korean culture, and the past 2 nights were group training for Koreans to understand the German culture and how to work effectively with the Germans. And then those two sessions were delivered in Korean. The first two were in English. So I'm really grateful that I can work online. I can keep working what I did in Korea even after I moved to the States, and I can use 2 languages, sometimes 3 because I speak Japanese too. And such a great opportunity as a Korean Japanese person to work with global leaders from different parts of the world. And I was thinking, what was important, like how did I get here? And I think the most important thing, or one thing that helped me, was I think I always try to make most of the environment I'm in. That doesn't mean I'm always happy and I have nothing to complain about or I don't make mistakes, but what I mean is even mistakes or something that I didn't choose or something that I didn't like, I face it and I take it as a part of my life and try to make most of it. That's why I get here. For example, the fact that I can be an intercultural coach in Korea or Japan and do this job is that because I speak English and because I'm in the field. And for a typical Japanese or Korean person, I think they don't even know this job, what intercultural trainer is or coach is. And I think the reason that I can do this is because I didn't go through the regular or more or less cultural norm of what to do in terms of studying and career. So normally both Korean and Japan, if you graduate from high school, you are expected to go to university and graduate and get into whatever famous good company in big company and like that. But in my case, high school, I almost dropped out, but I somehow graduated successfully thanks to my teachers who were very flexible enough. And then I decided to go to the States to get my degree. Yeah, of course, like since 10 years ago, Japan is all about, nurturing global students and, global human resource and everything. So going abroad to study or studying abroad became a big thing. But back in 90s when I was a university student, it wasn't a thing at all. Like, why would you go study abroad? I mean, I think my era was kind of like a mid-dip that not so many people are going because the bubble burst happened. Before my generation, because of the economic bubble, a lot of companies were sending people to get MBAs and things like that. But I don't think many students went there. So I was kind of rare. Of course, I don't mean to say no Japanese people studied abroad, but compared to now, the power of this study abroad, or how people perceive study abroad. It was kind of like, oh, you are not successful in Japan, that's why you're going abroad, or something like that. So anyway, it wasn't really appreciated, but I went there. So it was totally different from the normal other Japanese students who were studying very hard to get into prestigious Japanese universities. So I went in and I studied in the States. So yes, my English is not at a native level, and I still have accents, but I can deliver programs in English, and I can communicate at business level. So I get to do intercultural training and coaching. And another thing is, when I was in the States, when I met Korean people there, they are the one who told me, like, you have Korean blood and you don't speak Korean. Shame on you, you should study. And that's when I felt like, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe I should start studying Korean. And many people, could have been offended. Like, yeah, I have heritage, but that doesn't mean I should study or I can speak, and that's rude. I didn't take it that way. I thought, yeah, maybe that's what I should do. So that's when I started studying Korean. So that's another thing, I think. Being partially Korean or 3/4 Korean was something positive since I was really small, and I never felt ashamed or I never felt like I have to hide it. So, and when people told me I should learn Korean, I thought, yeah, I should. So I started doing it. So that was the part of the environment, right? Like I was in an environment where there are a lot of Koreans, because I was studying in San Diego, and they told me that I should study Korean, and I started studying Korean. So I was just going with the flow that the environment gave me, and having the Korean heritage is something that my environment gave me. I didn't choose to be 3/4 Korean. So I think I took advantage of the environment. And back then, I didn't think about, okay, I'm gonna learn Korean, and in the future, I'm gonna work using the Korean language. I never thought about it. I just enjoy studying my heritage language, singing at a karaoke, things like that. So that's something I take advantage of, and so now I can deliver programs and coaching in Korean, so I really appreciate it. So again, that's something that's different from what other people might have done. And plus, other things are something like divorcing my husband and becoming a single mom. That was, yeah, you can say it's something that you chose or something you didn't choose. Or having a child who had cancer and who went through brain surgery and having handicap. That one, of course, no one chose. Being sexually harassed at work when I was working for this Japanese company, or power abuse, those experience, or maternity harassment, that's what we call in Japan. When I got pregnant, I was told that my contract will be terminated, things like that. So those challenging moments happened, and I cried, I didn't like it, I complained, yes, but in the end I accepted as those as my part of my life, and I tried to understand why it happens, or what kind of things are happening to other people, trying to read other people's books, things like that, to learn. And I believe that's helping me with my coaching presence, or as a trainer, or to understand more diversity and inclusion. So I really appreciate all these experiences that the life or environment gave me. And yeah, some of the things that like divorce, you might say, yeah, you chose it, but then what I mean is like the environment, going with the flow, the challenges life gives you. Sometimes you feel like it's all passive, like it just happened. But I think the most important thing is facing it as if you chose it. And maybe when you were in the middle of the challenge, that's super hard, but it doesn't matter how long the time passes. At some point, if you can look at it as if you chose it, and if you can really accept it as a part of yourself, then I think a lot of opportunities come to you. And in my case, it comes as my career. So I get to do many different kinds of now training and coaching, not only just intercultural, but diversity and inclusion and life coaching. And I am really grateful that I can support people in so many ways. And that's because I believe my presence is very unique, because I am taking advantages of all these challenges and happenings that was in my life. So I give advice, to my fellow coach too, who is in Korea and who is married to a Korean husband. I said, if you learn the Korean language because you're married to a Korean American husband who speaks Korean, and you live in Korea for a few years already, and if you learn Korean language, take advantage of that environment, the environment that life gives you, then you can become again, like, add more uniqueness to yourself. And I think that becomes your own brand, and that will give you more opportunities for career or anything in your life. That's what I believe. So I don't force her or anything. It's my belief. So of course she can think a different way, but that's what I experienced in my life, and that's how I feel. So I share my view with her. So yeah, so I wanted to talk about this today, and how thankful I am that I try to take advantage of every situation or every challenge that I faced in my life. And I think that's kind of getting as one big, identity, or just myself, which is / brand, I guess, like Tomominess, or and I call it vulnerably badass character. I'm not strong badass person, but I think my vulnerability, just admitting everything and going through everything and being open about everything, kind of makes me a badass. So that's, I think, contributing to making my brand or my identity or myself. So I think the key element was maximizing the environment, or accepting whatever the environment life gives you and acting as if you chose. And don't fear getting off the rail that the society prepared for you mentally, or parents prepared for you. Just be yourself, and if being yourself is different from the majority or mainstream, don't worry, that's you, that's your brand. And when you go different route, you feel like lonely or nobody's understanding you, but later on, I'm 100% sure you have your own brand, your own color, and you can enjoy your own life. So maximize the environment. So today's question is, when do you feel that you are going off the track or the rail the society prepared for you? Or when do you feel you're going with the flow that life gives you? And when have you experienced that being yourself brought you more opportunities? So thank you for coming to my channel. See you next time.